I never thought I'd be the guy to find out my wife, Lisa, was cheating on me, especially not in such a painfully obvious way. Our marriage had been pretty solid for years. Good job, nice house, 2 kids, the usual suburban life. But something had felt off the last few months. She started acting distant, secretive even. Little things, her phone always face down, her brushing off questions about where she was going or who she was talking to. I honestly thought she was just stressed with work or maybe bored. We'd been together for over a decade. I trusted her, or at least I wanted to. It wasn't until our second honeymoon trip that I started to piece it all together. We went to this tropical resort in the Caribbean, a place we'd always talked about visiting. I was excited, looking forward to some relaxation and quality time. We flew out early that morning, me, her, and the kids. She'd been quiet on the flight, which was unusual because Lisa's the kind of person who loves to chat and make jokes. But during the flight, I got a chance to chat with the pilot, Jason. Nice guy, good sense of humor. And he was really cool about the kids asking questions nonstop. The flight was smooth, but halfway through, Jason started talking about the island, the best spots to eat, and some secret beaches only locals knew about. That's when he reached into his pocket and handed Lisa his business card, saying, "If you ever want some tips or need help, just give me a call." I saw her smile, a little too eagerly, and she tucked the card away like some prize. It rubbed me the wrong way right away, but I didn't say anything. Sometimes people just exchange contact info, right? We landed, checked into our resort, and I was just happy to be away from the stress of work and everything else. But Lisa kept acting weird. She started taking her phone everywhere, even to the bathroom. She'd go out for long walks alone or disappear for half an hour while I was busy with the kids. And she'd get these texts, quick, secretive. I'd catch her glancing at her screen and quickly locking it. She was acting like she was hiding something, but I guess I wanted to ignore it because I didn't want to ruin the... I told myself I was overthinking it. Then during a snorkeling trip, I was underwater for a couple of hours. When I came back up, Lisa was gone. I looked around and saw her chatting with some guy, definitely not one of the resort staff, just some guy she'd clearly been waiting to meet. They were whispering and laughing, and she looked different. There was that familiar smirk, the one she'd use when she was lying or hiding something. I froze, watching from a distance, feeling my stomach turn over. The worst part, they didn't notice me. I was just standing there trying to process what I saw. That's when I realized she was meeting someone, probably that pilot guy, Jason, or whoever he was. She lied about being out exploring or relaxing, but she was meeting someone. The next few hours, I couldn't shake the image from my head. My mind kept circling back to that moment, and I felt this sickening mixture of anger, betrayal, and heartbreak. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but everything pointed to something much worse than just a harmless, flirty chat. When I finally confronted her that evening, she was bitchy, defensive, dismissive, and outright lying. She told me she was just talking to some girl she met at the pool, that I was imagining things, said I was paranoid, that I was overreacting. But I knew better. I saw her phone with those messages, her replying to some guy, "Can't wait to see you again," with some bullshit excuse about how she was tired and just wanted to relax. I felt like I'd been hit by a truck. That night I lay awake staring at the ceiling, my mind racing. How could she do this? How could she betray everything we built? I felt the sting of betrayal so sharp that I couldn't breathe. I trusted her with everything, and she was out there, meeting some guy who probably flew us to our honeymoon just so she could cheat with him. I knew that I'd never looked at her the same way again. The trust was shattered, and I was left with this gnawing emptiness, wondering how we'd get past this or if I even wanted to try. The next morning, I woke up feeling like I'd been hit by a freight train. I kept replaying that scene from yesterday over and over, Lisa whispering with that guy, her eyes sparkling like she was on some secret high, and me standing there, invisible but knowing exactly what was happening. I couldn't get the image out of my head, and honestly, I started feeling sick. How long had this been going on? Was this just a one-time thing, or had she been cheating on me for weeks? The worst part was not knowing for sure, but everything pointed to the latter. I decided I couldn't just sit around and stew. I had to find out the truth, no matter how much it hurt. So I waited until she was asleep that night, pretending to be tired, pretending I didn't notice her secretive behavior. I grabbed her phone, careful not to wake her, and started scrolling through her messages. My heart pounded in my chest, trying to keep calm, but the evidence was right there. Flirty texts, innuendos, and plans to meet up. She had been lying to my face, and I felt like a fool. Her messages with Jason, the pilot, were the clearest. They exchanged numbers during the flight, and she'd been texting him ever since we'd arrived. There were even messages about meeting. After sunset, so no one would suspect, she said. My blood boiled. I was furious, but I also felt devastated. How could she turn out to be this person? She'd always been so bitchy and arrogant, throwing fits and acting superior, but I never expected her to be capable of this kind of betrayal. I knew I couldn't confront her that night, not with her asleep beside me. I needed a plan, a way to catch her in the act without her knowing. I stayed up late, ignoring the buzzing in my head, thinking about what I'd do next. I was angry enough to explode, but I also knew I had to be smart. I started looking for ways to get more proof, maybe even catch her red-handed. I thought about installing some kind of tracker or bugging her phone, but that felt extreme. I settled for setting up a hidden camera in the room, pointing at her side of the bed. I'd never done anything like this before, but I didn't see any other choice. I had to know. The next day, I kept my distance, pretending everything was normal. She went out for her usual walks, but I followed her at a distance. She met up with Jason again, this time at some remote beach, just the two of them. I watched from a hidden spot, trying to hold back the rage. She was so different from the Lisa I married, her bitchy attitude, that smirk like she knew everything, like she had some secret that made her better than everyone else. And I realized I was just another pawn in her game of lies and betrayal. By the time she returned to the resort that evening, I had enough. I snuck back to the room, checked the camera, and saw her slip into the bathroom. I could hear her phone buzzing, messages coming in nonstop. I waited until she was done, then slowly crept out of the room, grabbing the recording device I'd hidden earlier. When she came back out, I confronted her, cold, calm, but with enough anger simmering beneath the surface. "You've been cheating on me," I said, voice low but steady. Her face twisted into a typical bitchy sneer. "What are you talking about?" "I don't know what you're talking about," she lied, blinking rapidly as if trying to dismiss everything. I played the recording I'd made, her voice echoing through the room. The way she denied it, the way she lied so easily, made my stomach turn. She was so good at pretending, at lying her way out of everything. Her reaction was classic. She got defensive fast, throwing out stupid excuses. "It's just sex," she snapped. "You're overreacting, and I don't even care about that pilot guy." But I knew better. I saw the messages, the secret meetings, the way she was so eager to hide her phone from me. I'd never felt such a mixture of disgust and heartbreak in my life. I wanted to shake her, scream at her, but I just stood there, staring at her with a cold fury I'd never known I possessed. The more she lied, the more I realized how deep her betrayal went. This wasn't some mistake or an impulsive fling. It was calculated, planned, and done with total disregard for what we had. I felt my world crumbling around me, and I was left standing there, wondering how we got to this point, how I'd ever trust her again, if trust was even still possible. I knew I had to get out of there, but part of me wanted to make her pay. I wanted her to feel the pain she'd caused me, the way she'd made a fool out of everything we built. I didn't have a plan yet, but I knew I couldn't stay with her after this. Not anymore. Not with her lying so easily, turning herself into some kind of manipulative bitch who thought she was above it all. I just didn't know how I'd ever look at her the same way again. After confronting her with the recorded evidence, Lisa's face twisted into a nasty smirk, that arrogant little sneer she always wore when she was trying to manipulate someone. "Oh, please," she shot back, crossing her arms. "You're seriously believing I'd cheat on you, with some pilot I barely know? You've got to be kidding." She looked at me like I was the crazy one, like I'd lost my mind over a simple misunderstanding. That's when I realized she was so good at lying she could probably sell sand in the desert, but I wasn't buying it. I looked her dead in the eyes and said, "I saw the messages. I was there." "Lisa, you met that guy twice in one day and you're telling me it's nothing, that it's just sex." Her eyes flickered maybe for a second, but she quickly recovered. "Look, I don't know what you think you saw, but you're overreacting. This is all in your head. I don't care about that pilot. I'm just tired of this trip, tired of you accusing me of things I didn't do." Her voice was dripping with venom, trying to make me doubt my own eyes, my own judgment. I felt a cold wave of rage and despair crash over me. How could she be so dismissive? So dismissive of what she'd done. I wanted to scream, to shake her, but I kept my voice steady. "You're lying," I said, "and I've got the proof. I recorded everything. Your lies, your sneering, everything." I played the recording again, loud enough for her to hear her own voice. Her reaction was classic. Her eyes widened just a little, but then she snapped back into her usual bitchy facade. "Fine," she spat. "You want to believe I'm cheating? Go ahead. But I'm telling you it's nothing serious, just some stupid flirtation. I don't even care about that guy. I was bored and he was just some stranger on the plane. I can't believe you're making such a huge deal out of it." Her words sounded rehearsed, like she'd practiced her lies before she even sat down on that flight. She was so good at twisting the truth, making herself the victim, that it almost made me second-guess myself. I didn't buy any of it. I could see the frustration bubbling in her eyes, that fake innocence she always put on when she was backed into a corner. I started to feel a mixture of disgust and heartbreak. I'd loved her, trusted her, and now I was wondering if I'd ever known her at all. How many times had she lied to me? How many other secret meetings, secret texts, hidden plans? I felt so stupid, so blindsided. I'd been so blind I missed all the signs. Her secretive behavior, her sneaky phone habits, the way she always looked over her shoulder like she was worried someone was going to catch her. Part of me wanted to break down, to scream at her, to throw everything in her face. But I knew that would get me anywhere. Instead, I just stared at her, trying to process what I'd just learned. And in that moment, I made a decision. I couldn't stay with her, not after this. Not with her so blatantly lying, so easily dismissing what she'd done. I was done pretending that everything was okay. I felt my jaw tighten and my fists clench. Whatever this was, it was over. I told her I needed some space, that I was going for a walk and that I'd be back soon. I grabbed my phone, my keys, and left the room, not even bothering to pack lightly. I didn't care about the trip anymore. All I wanted was to get as far away from her as possible. As I walked out the door, I could hear her shouting behind me, calling my name, but I didn't turn back. I didn't want to see that bitchy smirk again. I just kept walking, trying to hold it together as my world crumbled around me. What I didn't realize then was how much worse things were about to get. I thought I knew what betrayal looked like, but I was about to find out just how deep her lies went and how much more pain I was about to endure before I could even start to heal. I spent the next couple of hours walking around the resort, trying to clear my head but failing miserably. Every step I took, I felt that gnawing ache in my chest, like my heart was trying to rip itself out. I kept replaying everything, her lies, her sneers, the way she dismissed my feelings like they were nothing. How could she be so cold, so calculated? All I wanted was honesty, but instead I got deception dressed up in pretty lies and bitchy smirks. I finally found a quiet spot by the beach, away from all the chatter and laughter of other tourists. I sat there, staring out at the endless blue waves, trying to understand how I'd ended up here in this mess. I thought about everything we'd been through, our wedding, the kids, the trips, the late-night talks. I thought about how I'd trusted her, how I'd always believed she was my partner, my best friend. Turns out, it was all a lie. My mind kept circling back to that moment on the plane when she took Jason's card and smiled so eagerly. I was so stupid not to see it then. I was so blind, so naive, thinking we had some perfect life. But now I saw the cracks. The secret glances, the secret meetings, her sneaky texts. Every sign was warning me, but I ignored them because I loved her too much. And now I felt like I'd been played for a fool. I pulled out my phone and started scrolling through the messages I'd secretly recorded. The more I read, the more I felt the rage bubbling up again. She told me she was tired and bored, but the truth was she was out there, meeting this guy, acting like she was single. I saw their plans, how she agreed to meet him at some remote cove after sunset, how she texted him constantly, how she was so eager to see him again. I felt a mixture of anger and heartbreak that I couldn't even put into words, But then, as I looked at the messages, I noticed something I hadn't seen before. A pattern. She was trying to hide all of her tracks, deleting some texts, rewriting others. She was trying to erase her tracks like she knew what she was doing was wrong. That realization hit me hard. She was actively covering her ass, lying even more convincingly. She knew exactly what she was doing, and she didn't care who got hurt in the process. I sat there feeling more betrayed than ever when suddenly my phone buzzed. It was a message from an unknown number. "You better not tell him, or else." My stomach clenched. I knew immediately who it was, her. Lisa. Or at least someone she'd sent to threaten me. I couldn't believe it. This was beyond simple cheating. It was manipulation, intimidation, and outright betrayal wrapped into one. My mind was racing. I couldn't just sit there and let her get away with this. I had to do something, but I wasn't sure what. Part of me wanted to confront her again, to demand answers, to show her I'd found out everything. But another part, smarter, colder, knew I needed to be strategic. I couldn't let her see I was onto her completely. If she thought I was close to catching her, she might escalate things or try to cover her tracks even more. So I decided I'd wait. I'd keep the recordings, the evidence, and I'd plan my next move carefully. I felt exhausted, drained, and betrayed, but I knew I couldn't let her see that. Not yet. I needed to gather my strength, my resolve. I was done being the fool in her game. This wasn't just about infidelity anymore. It was about how far she was willing to go to lie, cheat, and manipulate her way out of the mess she'd created. As I sat there on the beach, watching the sunset turn the sky into a fiery canvas, I realized something. I'd loved her, yes. But I'd also lost myself in her. I'd given her so much, my trust, my heart, and she'd thrown it all away for a fleeting thrill with some pilot. I didn't know what my next step would be, but I knew one thing. I wasn't going to let her get away with this. I'd find a way to make her pay, one way or another, and I'd do it without her knowing what hit her. The next morning, I woke up feeling like I'd aged 100 years overnight. My mind was a blur of anger, betrayal, and a strange sense of clarity. I knew I couldn't just walk away from this without doing something, but I also couldn't let her see I was onto her just yet. I needed to act smart, to gather more evidence, to make sure I was prepared for whatever came next. I spent the morning pretending everything was normal, helping with the kids, pretending to enjoy breakfast, but inside I was plotting. I started researching ways to expose her, looking for legal options, ways to confront her without giving her a chance to lie her way out. I even considered hiring a private investigator, but I knew that would be overkill. Instead, I decided to go old school. I was going to set a trap. I bought a cheap but effective hidden camera from an electronics store and hooked it up in the room. I aimed it at her side of the bed, where I knew she'd try to hide her lies. I made sure the device was discreet, and I tested it thoroughly before leaving it in place. I told myself I didn't want to invade her privacy, but I knew I needed proof, hard, undeniable proof of what she was up to. That afternoon, I kept my distance again, pretending to be busy with the kids, but I was watching her every move. She went out for her usual walk, but this time I followed at a safe distance. She met up with someone at the edge of the resort, probably Jason, that pilot, who was waiting in a rental car. I saw her slip into the passenger seat with a quick, frantic glance around, as if trying to avoid being seen. She was completely brazen about it. I stayed hidden behind some palms, watching her disappear down the road. My stomach twisted. Part of me wanted to run over there immediately, to confront her, to call her out in front of everyone. But I knew that wouldn't help. Instead, I kept my cool, took out the camera, and got footage of her meeting him. I couldn't believe how blatant it was. The secret meetings, the quick kisses, the way she was so eager to hide her affair from the world. When she returned late that evening, I was waiting in the room, pretending to be asleep. I saw her come in, her face flushed and smug, and I just sat there, waiting for her to realize I had everything on tape. When she finally settled into bed, I pressed play on my hidden recorder and let her hear herself lie through her teeth. I was done with her bullshit. I was done being the fool. Her face twisted into a mixture of anger and panic when she heard her own voice, trying to deny everything. Her eyes darted around the room, searching for an escape route, but she knew she'd been caught dead to rights. I watched her break, just a little, realizing her lies had been exposed, and I felt a strange mixture of satisfaction and emptiness. I knew I had to confront her again. No more hiding, no more pretending. I had everything I needed now. As I stared at her, lying there like she still owned the room, I felt a cold resolve settle inside me. I wasn't going to let her manipulate her way out of this. I was going to make her face the consequences. The question was, how far was I willing to go? How much more pain was I ready for? Because I knew one thing for sure, the betrayal had cut so deep, I'd never be the same person again. That night I finally sat her down with all the evidence laid bare. The footage, the messages, everything. She sat there, cornered, her bitchy mask slipping away to reveal something uglier beneath. Her eyes flickered with anger, guilt, and that same arrogant defiance she always wore when she thought she was untouchable. I told her I knew about Jason, about the secret meetings, about everything she tried to hide. Her first instinct was denial. "You're crazy," she snapped, her voice trembling just a little. "You're just overreacting. It's just sex, for God's sake. It doesn't mean anything." But I wasn't buying her bullshit anymore. I played the recordings again, showed her the footage, and I saw her face drain of color. The bitchy smirk was gone. Her eyes darted around, searching for an excuse, a lie to fall back on, but she knew she'd been caught. I felt a strange mixture of fury and sadness. All those years, all that trust I'd given her, and it was worth nothing. I realized I'd been so blind, so desperate to hold onto the life we built, that I ignored the signs. And now I saw her for what she really was, selfish, manipulative, and willing to destroy everything just for a quick thrill with a pilot who flew us to our second honeymoon. I told her I was done. Done pretending, done risking my heart, done with her lies. I told her she had two choices: come clean and tell me the truth, or I'd leave her and take the kids with me. Her bitchy attitude flared again, but this time there was no way she could spin her way out. She had no more lies left to tell. She looked at me with contempt, then spat out, "You think you're all that, huh? Well, I don't give a damn. You're just insecure and jealous. This doesn't mean anything." That's when I finally understood it's been her way all along, gaslighting, blaming me, projecting her own guilt onto me, but I wasn't buying it anymore. I stood up, told her she'd crossed the line and that I was leaving the resort the next morning. I packed my bag, grabbed the evidence, and told her she'd hear from me once I'd had time to think. The drive home was silent. I didn't cry, I was too numb. I was furious at myself, furious at her, furious at how I'd let her manipulate me for so long. As soon as I got home, I filed for divorce. It was the hardest thing I'd ever done, but I knew I had no choice. I couldn't stay with someone so willing to betray everything we had. In the days that followed, I reflected on what I'd learned. Trust is fragile, and sometimes it takes a complete disaster to open your eyes. I realized I'd been naive, blinded by love, and that I'd let her walk all over me because I didn't want to face the truth. Now I was rebuilding, learning to be alone, learning what respect really meant, and understanding that my own happiness mattered just as much as anyone else's. My advice to anyone in a similar situation: don't ignore the signs. Don't make excuses for someone who clearly doesn't value you. And if you find yourself in a situation of betrayal, face it head on. It's painful, but it's better than living a lie. Trust me, you'll come out stronger on the other side, though it'll take time. And in the end, you'll realize that some people are just not worth the pain they cause.